I didn't catch my wife cheating in a hotel room, or through messages, or because someone warned me. I caught her because she came home late and forgot which lies she'd already told me. At first, I thought the betrayal was the worst part. I was wrong, because the man she was sleeping with wasn't a stranger. He wasn't a coworker. He wasn't an ex. When I finally learned who he was, everything I thought I knew about my marriage and my life collapsed at once. And from that moment on, there was no going back. My name is Daniel Ross. And until that night, I believed my marriage was solid, not exciting, not dramatic, but stable. The kind of stability you trust because nothing has ever tested it. Emily and I had been married for 11 years. No scandals, no breakups, no explosive fights, just routines. She worked late sometimes. I worked early most mornings. We crossed paths more than we collided. That's why I ignored the first warning signs, the canceled dinners, the sudden need for privacy, the way she guarded her phone like it contained something fragile. I told myself it was stressful. That's what loyal people do. They rationalize. The night everything changed started like any other. She texted that she'd be late. Again. I didn't question it, but when she walked through the door near midnight, something was off. Not guilt, not fear. Confidence. She kissed my cheek, smelled like a different perfume, and started telling a story she'd clearly rehearsed. Halfway through, she contradicted herself. Just slightly. Enough. I didn't call her out. I didn't accuse. I listened. Because when someone is lying, the truth always leaks. If you give it time. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, because my instincts were screaming. And they were right. By the end of that week, I knew she was cheating. But I still didn't know with who. And that ignorance was the only thing protecting me from how much worse this was about to get. I didn't confront her, not yet. People think catching a cheater is about rage, about shouting, accusations, slammed doors. It's not. It's about patience. The next few days, I became invisible in my own marriage. I listened more than I spoke, watched patterns instead of moments. When someone is hiding something, consistency disappears first. Emily started living on a different schedule, late meetings that didn't line up with her calendar, sudden errands at odd hours, a new lock screen on her phone, notifications muted. She wasn't sloppy, she was practiced. That scared me more than guilt ever could. One night, while she showered, her phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't grab it. I didn't need to. The preview said enough. Same place as last time. No name, no emoji, just familiarity. That's when denial ended. I waited a week before doing anything else. Not because I was afraid, because I needed clarity. I checked our shared accounts. Nothing unusual, no hotel charges, no obvious gifts. Whoever this was, they were careful or powerful enough not to leave trails. Then I noticed something else. Her mood. She wasn't happier. She was lighter, as if something heavy had been removed from her life. And that told me the affair wasn't new. It had been going on long enough to feel normal. The first real lead came from a mistake she didn't know she'd made. She mentioned a name in passing, just once, casually, while complaining about work. Mark doesn't understand deadlines, she said. He thinks everything can be smoothed over. She'd never mentioned a Mark before. I didn't react, didn't ask questions, but that name stayed with me. That night, I opened my laptop and searched quietly, not social media. Internal connections, people at her company, partners, vendors. There were 3 Marks. One stood out immediately. Same age range, same city, recently divorced, and one more detail that made my stomach drop. I knew him, not personally, but professionally. He wasn't just someone from her office. He was someone who had influence over my career. That realization didn't hit like anger. It hit like gravity. Because if I was right, this wasn't just an affair, it was a betrayal with leverage. And the truth I was circling was about to turn my marriage into something far more dangerous than infidelity. I didn't want to be right. That's the part people never understand. When you're circling a truth like this, you're not hoping to uncover it. You're hoping it collapses under scrutiny, that you've misread something, that the pieces won't fit once you look closer. They fit perfectly. Mark Reynolds wasn't just connected to Emily's world. He was embedded in mine. He was a senior partner at a firm my company depended on. The kind of man whose approval didn't just open doors, it decided who stayed in the building. I'd shaken his hand more than once, sat across from him in meetings, listened to him talk about professional boundaries and ethical leadership like they were values instead of branding. And now, according to the trail I was following, he was sleeping with my wife. I didn't confront Emily. I didn't confront Mark. I did something far more dangerous. I verified. I pulled old calendars, cross-referenced dates. Emily said she was working late with meetings Mark attended across town. I checked travel schedules, conferences, dinners, overlaps that were too clean to be coincidence. Then came the confirmation I couldn't unsee. A receipt, not in our accounts, in his. A restaurant reservation under his name. Same night Emily had claimed she was staying with a coworker. Same place she'd once mentioned offhandedly, saying, "You'd like it there. It's discreet." Discreet. That word finally made sense. I felt something then. But it wasn't rage, it was clarity, because this wasn't about passion or impulse or even escape. It was about power. Mark didn't just want Emily, he wanted what she represented: access, secrecy, control without consequence. And Emily, she didn't just betray me, she aligned herself with someone who had leverage over my future. That realization changed everything. From that moment on, this stopped being about heartbreak. It became about survival. The next time I saw Mark, it was in a boardroom. Same suit, same calm authority, same practiced smile. He nodded at me like nothing had changed. I nodded back. And in that exchange, something passed between us. Something unspoken but unmistakable. He knew. Not that I knew everything, but that I knew enough. Emily came home late again that night. She was relaxed, unbothered, almost cheerful. She asked about my day. I told her it was productive. She smiled. That smile told me she believed she was winning. She believed the game was under control. What she didn't realize was that the moment I identified who she was sleeping with, the rules changed. Because affairs survive on secrecy, power collapses under exposure, and I wasn't the kind of man who rushed the end of something until every move was accounted for. Not my marriage, not my career, and certainly not the man who thought he could take both. Once you know the truth, everything sounds different. Every word Emily spoke after that felt measured, every laugh rehearsed, every casual question a probe. She didn't know I was watching from the other side of the illusion. And Mark had grown careless, not reckless, careless, because powerful people rarely believe the floor beneath them can collapse. The first shift happened at work. Nothing dramatic, no confrontation, just a change in tone. Mark stopped making eye contact during meetings. Delegated conversations he used to dominate became cautious. That told me something. Emily hadn't told him yet. He didn't know how much I knew, which meant he was guessing. Guessing creates mistakes. I made my first move without touching either of them. I documented emails, meeting notes, decision patterns. Mark had always positioned himself as ethical, meticulous, beyond reproach. That kind of image requires perfection. I didn't need to prove wrongdoing. I only needed to expose inconsistency. At home, Emily started asking questions. "You've been quiet lately," she said one evening. "Everything okay?" Yes, I replied, just focused. She watched me longer than usual. You're not upset with me, are you? There it was, fear wrapped in concern. No, I said honestly. Why would I be? She nodded, unconvinced. That night, she didn't sleep well. I know because she checked her phone at least 6 times between midnight and 3 a.m., waiting for reassurance from him. A few days later, Mark made his first mistake. He scheduled a meeting with my department. Unnecessary, uncharacteristic, an excuse. He asked questions he already knew the answers to, stalled longer than needed, studied my reactions like he was searching for confirmation. I gave him nothing, not anger, not fear, not recognition, just professionalism. That unsettled him more than confrontation ever could. Powerful people are trained to respond to resistance. They're helpless against indifference. The tension followed Emily home. She became sharper, more impatient. Arguments surfaced out of nothing. She criticized small things. How I folded laundry, how I answered texts, how I seemed distant. I didn't defend myself. Defensiveness would have reassured her. Silence kept her guessing. One night, she finally broke. "Are you cheating on me?" she asked. The audacity almost impressed me. "No," I said. "Are you?" Her face changed instantly. Not guilt, calculation. "You're imagining things," she said. "You've been under stress." I nodded. Maybe. She relaxed. Just a fraction, and in that fraction, I saw it. The crack. Because people who are lying don't fear questions. They fear timing. And Emily could feel something coming. She just didn't know from where. Meanwhile, the groundwork was nearly complete. I didn't need to confront them. I didn't need to accuse. I needed one thing only, a moment where the truth had nowhere left to hide. And that moment was already scheduled. They just didn't know it yet. The meeting was scheduled for a Thursday morning. Routine on paper, quarterly review, cross-department alignment, the kind of meeting people stop paying attention to halfway through, which is exactly why it worked. Mark arrived early. Too early. He chose a seat with a clear view of the room, back straight, expression neutral, a man positioning himself to stay in control. Emily arrived 5 minutes later. She wasn't supposed to be there. That was the first fracture. She froze when she saw me. Not long, not obvious, just long enough. Mark noticed. I watched the recognition move across his face. Slow, dawning, unwelcome. He hadn't expected this configuration. Neither of them had. The meeting began. Numbers, slides, safe language. I waited. Halfway through, Mark interrupted a junior analyst with unnecessary criticism, a dominance move, old habit. Normally, no one challenged him. This time, I did, calmly, professionally, with documentation. I corrected his claim, cited dates, quoted his own prior approval. The room went quiet. Mark smiled, tight, controlled, but his eyes didn't. Emily stared at the table. I continued. Not accusing, not emotional, just exact. I highlighted inconsistencies, decision reversals, conflicts that required disclosure under policy, no names, no insinuations, just facts. Mark tried to regain ground. "Let's take this offline," he said. "No need," I replied. "This affects everyone." Silence. Then the compliance officer spoke. "I think we should pause," she said carefully. "There are questions here that need clarification." That was it. No explosion, no shouting, just gravity. The meeting ended early. Mark left first, face pale, jaw locked. Emily followed minutes later. She didn't look at me. That afternoon, her phone was off. That night, she didn't come home. I wasn't surprised. People don't return to burning buildings. Fallout moved fast after that. Internal review. Emails flagged. Relationships mapped. Mark was placed on immediate leave. Emily was suspended pending investigation. She called me at midnight. sobbing, not apologizing, explaining. "You don't understand what he meant to me," she said. "What this did to my life." I listened, then said the truth she'd avoided since the beginning. "You didn't lose your life," I said. "You gambled it." She cried harder. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. "I know," I replied. "You just didn't mean not to." She hung up. The next morning, the firm issued a statement. No names, no details, but everyone knew. Within a week, Mark resigned. Within 2, Emily's contract was terminated. Friends stopped calling her. Opportunities evaporated, not because of scandal, because trust is fragile and hers was gone. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. Because exposure doesn't feel like revenge. It feels like closure arriving whether anyone is ready or not. And this story, their story, was almost over. Emily didn't disappear immediately. She lingered, not physically, emotionally. Her name kept coming up in conversations I wasn't part of. Her situation passed between people in lowered voices, the way professionals talk when they're deciding whether someone is still safe to associate with. Mark's exit was clean on paper. Personal reasons. Mutual decision. Wishing him well. That's how organizations bury their mistakes. Emily didn't get that courtesy. She wasn't senior enough to protect, not junior enough to excuse. She existed in the middle, where accountability is sharpest. Within a month, she was gone from the industry she'd built her identity around. Not formally blacklisted, just remembered. And memory is enough. She tried to reach out once more, a long message, carefully written, full of reflection, full of pain, full of the version of herself she wished she'd been earlier. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked for understanding. I read it twice. Then I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, out of completion. Some conversations don't end because they're resolved. They end because there's nothing left to add. The apartment changed after that. Not dramatically, subtly. The silence stopped feeling temporary. It became neutral. I rearranged furniture, cleared closets, removed traces that no longer belonged to the present. Not angrily, not ceremonially, methodically. The way you close a chapter you've already outgrown. Work stabilized. People stopped treating me like collateral damage and started treating me like someone who'd endured something without unraveling. That matters more than talent in the long run. I didn't tell my story. I didn't need to. The people who mattered already understood. Months later, I heard she'd moved. Smaller city, different field, consulting, ironically, trying to rebuild. I hoped she succeeded, not because I wanted redemption for her, but because failure shouldn't be the only teacher. One evening, long after the dust settled, I found myself thinking back to the moment I'd caught her. The moment everything split. I realized something then that I hadn't before. The betrayal wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how small she'd made her own world to justify it, and how much bigger mine had become once I stopped trying to fit inside it. I didn't win. She didn't lose. Life isn't that clean. But consequences arrived exactly where they were supposed to, and growth followed exactly where it was allowed. Today, my life is quieter, more intentional, built on choices that don't require secrecy or validation. I trust my instincts again. I trust my boundaries. And most importantly, I trust that walking away without revenge is sometimes the most decisive act of all. Because when you don't interfere with someone else's collapse, you don't have to carry it with you afterward.